They invited her to serve champagne at the biggest night of the year, surrounded by people who once knew her name. She was meant to stay invisible, humiliated, a ghost in a black uniform. But when she stepped through those glass doors, her face painted with something no one expected, the entire ballroom went silent. And in that silence, someone recognized her, and their world began to crack. Would you stay silent if they humiliated you in front of everyone you once loved? Maya hadn't slept the night before. She sat on the edge of her bed in her small studio apartment, staring at the wrinkled envelope on her nightstand. Inside was the invitation, not to attend, but to serve. The Belmont Foundation Gala. Black tie. Champagne towers. 1,000 people who used to know her by a different name. She thought about throwing it away. She thought about calling in sick. But the agency had already paid her half up front, and she needed every dollar. Her hands shook as she pulled the cheap black uniform from her closet. It smelled like detergent and disappointment. When she arrived at the Grandstone Hotel that evening, the staff entrance was around the back, near the dumpsters. She walked past them without looking, her head down, her heart loud in her chest. Inside, the kitchen was chaos. Trays clattered. Chefs shouted. A manager with a clipboard barked orders at a line of servers, all of them young and faceless. Maya stood at the end of the line. No one looked at her. No one recognized her. Not yet. The manager handed her a tray of champagne flutes and pointed toward the double doors, giving her instructions to keep moving, stay silent, and smile. She nodded, her throat dry. When she pushed through those doors, the world changed. The ballroom was made of light. Chandeliers hung like frozen stars. The floor was polished marble, reflecting the gowns and tuxedos of people who had never worried about rent. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Laughter drifted through the air like expensive perfume. Maya moved slowly along the edge of the room, offering champagne to strangers who didn't look at her face. Just her tray. Just the glass. She was furniture. She was invisible. And then she saw him. Daniel Ashford stood near the center of the room, laughing with a group of men in tailored suits. His hand rested casually on the waist of a woman in a red dress. She was young. Beautiful. Everything Maya used to be. Maya's chest tightened. She turned away quickly, but her feet felt heavy. She had known he would be here. Of course he would be here. He was one of them. But seeing him like this, so comfortable, so untouched by everything that had destroyed her, made her stomach twist. She kept moving. She kept her face blank. She delivered champagne. She smiled when required. But inside, she was screaming. Then someone called her name. She froze. The voice came from behind her. She turned slowly, her heart slamming against her ribs. It was Vanessa Klein. Blonde. Perfect. True. They had been roommates once, back when Maya's life was different. Back when she had a trust fund and a future. Vanessa's eyes widened in mock surprise, her voice loud enough to draw attention. She made a spectacle of recognizing Maya, commenting on how far she had fallen, gesturing at the uniform, the tray, the champagne with theatrical disbelief. The people around her turned, curious and amused. Maya's hands tightened on the tray. She tried to respond calmly, explaining she was simply working, but Vanessa wouldn't let it go. She pressed harder, asking if Maya's father had finally cut her off, if she'd blown through all that money herself, her words sharp and designed to cut. Maya didn't answer. She couldn't. Because Vanessa was right. Her father had cut her off. But not because she'd been reckless. Because she'd refused to lie for him. Because she'd told the truth. And the truth had cost her everything. Vanessa leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt louder than a shout. She mentioned that Daniel was there tonight, engaged now, to someone actually worth his time. Maya's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing the tears back. She excused herself and turned away. But Vanessa wasn't done. She called after Maya, asking her to grab another drink since she was serving tonight, her voice dripping with condescension. Laughter rippled through the group. Maya kept walking. She didn't stop. She didn't look back. She pushed through the crowd, her breath shallow, her hands trembling so badly the glasses on her tray began to rattle. She made it to the edge of the ballroom and set the tray down on a side table. Her chest was tight. Her throat burned. She wanted to run. She wanted to disappear. But then she heard his voice calling her name. She turned. Daniel stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. He looked older, tired, but still handsome. Still the man she had once loved. He asked what she was doing there, and she told him she was working, her voice flat. He glanced at her uniform, then back at her face, saying he hadn't known. She asked why he would. He stepped closer and told her he was sorry about everything. She laughed. It came out bitter and broken. She asked if he really was sorry. He insisted he was, but then his jaw tightened and he reminded her that she'd made her choice. She could have stayed quiet. She could have kept the life she had. But she didn't. She chose to burn it all down. Maya corrected him, saying she chose the truth, that it wasn't the same thing. Daniel argued that it was when the truth destroyed people. She stared at him and told him it destroyed her too. He looked away and admitted he knew. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The music played. The crowd laughed. And Maya realized, with a cold, hollow certainty, that Daniel didn't care. He had moved on. He had rebuilt. And she was still here, drowning. She told him she had to go. She turned and walked toward the back hallway, past the bathrooms, past the coat check, toward the staff exit. She needed air. She needed to breathe. But as she pushed through the door into the cold night, someone grabbed her arm. She spun around. It was a man she didn't recognize. Older. Gray hair. Sharp eyes. He spoke her full name, not as a question but as a statement. She pulled her arm free and asked who he was. He told her he was someone who had been looking for her, and he handed her a card. Plain. What? No name. Just a phone number. She asked what it was. He told her it was a chance if she wanted it. She stared at the card, her heart pounding. The man continued, telling her that they thought she was nothing now, that they thought she was broken. But she wasn't. She was the only one who knew the truth. And the truth, he said, was worth a lot more than she thought. He turned and walked back inside, leaving her alone in the cold. Maya looked down at the card in her hand. Her fingers were shaking. Her mind was racing. And for the first time in 2 years, she felt something other than fear. She felt power. The night air bit at her skin, but she didn't move. She stood there, holding that card, feeling the weight of everything that had happened and everything that could still happen. The ballroom behind her was full of light and laughter, full of people who had erased her from their lives. But out here, in the dark, she held something they didn't know about. She held a choice. She thought about the last 2 years. The eviction notice taped to her door. The nights she ate ramen because it was all she could afford. The job interviews where people looked at her resume and asked what had happened, their eyes full of judgment. The way her father's lawyer had painted her as a liar, a vindictive daughter, someone who couldn't be trusted. The way the media had torn her apart. The way her friends had stopped calling. The way Daniel had walked away without looking back. She thought about all of it. And then she pulled out her phone and dialed the number. It rang once. Then a voice answered, calm and professional, saying her name and expressing hope that she would call. She asked who he was. He introduced himself as Jonathan Pierce, an attorney who represented a group of people very interested in what she knew. She asked what he meant. He mentioned her father, the Belmont Foundation, the money. Her breath caught. She started to deny it, but he gently interrupted, reminding her that she had testified 2 years ago, that she had told the truth, and that they had buried her for it. But the truth hadn't disappeared, he said. It was still there. And now, people were ready to listen. Her heart was pounding. She asked why now. Jonathan explained that her father had made a mistake, gotten careless, and they had evidence. But they needed her. They needed her testimony. They needed her to stand up again. She told him she couldn't, that she had already lost everything. He acknowledged that he knew, but assured her that this time, she wouldn't be alone. She closed her eyes. She thought about the last 2 years again, all the pain, all the loss. Then she whispered, asking what she had to do. He told her to come to his office tomorrow. They would talk. And then, he said, they would make them pay. She hung up. Her hands were shaking. But this time, it wasn't from fear. She looked back at the hotel, at the golden lights spilling from the windows, at the valets helping guests into expensive cars. She had walked into that building as nothing, but she was walking out as something else. Something dangerous. Something they should have been afraid of all along. The next morning, Maya sat in a glass office on the 40th floor of a building she could never afford to enter. Jonathan Pierce sat across from her, a folder open on his desk. He was older than she'd expected. 10 eyes, steady hands. He told her the facts plainly. Her father had embezzled over $200 million from the Belmont Foundation. He had used shell companies, offshore accounts, fake vendors. It was elegant, almost perfect, but she had seen it, and she had reported it. Maya nodded and said they had destroyed her for it. Jonathan corrected her gently, saying they had tried, but she was still here. He slid a photograph across the desk. It was a bank statement. Transactions highlighted in yellow. Millions of dollars moving through accounts she recognized. He explained that they had been building a case for 18 months. They had the money trail. They had the documents. But they needed a witness. Someone who was inside. Someone who saw it happen. Maya understood. They needed her. She stared at the photograph. Her father's signature was at the bottom. Clean. Confident. A lie written in ink. She asked what would happen if she did this. Jonathan was honest. They would come after her again. They would say she was lying. They would say she was bitter. They would destroy whatever was left of her life. She asked how he could be sure she would win this time. He leaned back in his chair and told her that this time, the world would be watching. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. She told him she would do it. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Jonathan and his team prepared her for what was coming. They walked her through depositions, coached her on how to stay calm under pressure, showed her the evidence they had gathered. Bank records, emails, testimony from accountants who had finally decided to talk, phone logs, meeting notes, a mountain of proof that her father had stolen millions and used his power to cover it up. Maya absorbed it all. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She had cried enough. When the day came, Maya stood outside the federal courthouse. Cameras lined the street. Reporters shouted questions. She wore a simple gray suit Jonathan had bought her. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was calm. She didn't answer the questions. She didn't look at the cameras. She just walked up the steps and through the doors. Inside, the courtroom was cold and quiet. Her father sat at the defense table, his lawyers surrounding him like a wall. He didn't look at her. Not once. Maya took the stand. She swore to tell the truth. And then, for 3 hours, she did. She told them about the late nights in her father's study. The hushed phone calls. The documents she'd found in his safe. The way he'd smiled when he told her it was just business. The way he'd threatened her when she said she'd go to the authorities. She told them about the shell companies with names that sounded legitimate but led nowhere. She told them about the foundation board members who asked questions and were quietly removed. She told them everything. And when she was done, the courtroom was silent. Her father's lawyer stood. He was tall. Expensive. Cruel. He asked if she was doing this because her father had cut her off financially. She said no. He asked if she was angry, bitter, seeking revenge. She said no. He asked why she was there then. Maya looked at her father. He still wouldn't meet her eyes. She said it was because what he did was wrong, and someone had to say so. The lawyer tried to shake her. He brought up her past, her relationships, her spending habits. He tried to paint her as unstable, unreliable, vengeful. But Maya didn't break. She answered every question calmly, clearly, truthfully. The trial lasted 4 weeks. Every day, Maya sat in the gallery and watched as the evidence piled up. Accountants testified about the fake vendors. Bank managers testified about the offshore accounts. Former employees testified about the pressure to stay quiet. Her father's world crumbled piece by piece. His lawyers fought hard, but the truth was too heavy, too clear, too documented. And on the final day, the jury came back. Guilty. On all counts. Maya didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just sat there, feeling the weight lift from her chest for the first time in 2 years. Outside the courthouse, Jonathan put a hand on her shoulder and told her she had done it. She nodded and asked what happened now. He told her that now she rebuilt. She asked how. He said it would take time, but she had something most people never got. She had won. She had told the truth and won. That meant something. That night, Maya went back to the Grandstone Hotel. Not as a server. Not as a ghost. She walked through the front entrance, past the doorman, into the lobby. She wore jeans and a sweater. She looked like herself. She sat at the bar and ordered a drink. The bartender didn't recognize her. No one did. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like freedom. She sipped her drink slowly, watching the people around her. Businessmen closing deals. Couples celebrating anniversaries. Tourists taking pictures. None of them knew who she was. None of them knew what she had done. And that was perfect. A week later, she got a call from Vanessa. Maya didn't answer. But Vanessa left a voicemail. Her voice was different. Softer. Apologetic. She said she had heard about the trial, about Maya's father, and that she was sorry. She said she didn't know. She said she shouldn't have said those things at the gala. She asked if Maya wanted to talk. Maya listened to the voicemail twice. Then she deleted it. She didn't need Vanessa's apology. She didn't need Daniel's regret. She didn't need anything from the people who had turned their backs on her. Over the next few months, things slowly changed. The media coverage of the trial brought attention to Maya's story. Not the version her father's lawyers had told, but the truth. Journalists reached out. She declined most interviews, but she agreed to a few. She told her story carefully, honestly, without bitterness. People listened. Some believed her. Some didn't. But enough did. A victims advocacy group hired her as a consultant. Then a law firm offered her a position helping with financial fraud cases. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. But she had something to do. Something that mattered. She moved out of the studio apartment into a small one-bedroom. Nothing fancy, but it had windows that let in light. She bought plants. She started running in the mornings. She reconnected with an old friend from college who had reached out after seeing the news. They met for coffee. It was awkward at first, but then it wasn't. Maya realized she had spent 2 years believing she was alone. But she wasn't. Not anymore. She had saved herself. And now, slowly, carefully, she was building something new. One evening, 6 months after the trial, Maya walked past the Grandstone Hotel. She stopped and looked up at the golden windows. She thought about the night she had served champagne. The night Vanessa had mocked her. The night Daniel had told her she'd burned it all down. The night the man with gray hair had handed her a card. She thought about how terrified she had been. How small she had felt. She didn't feel small anymore. She kept walking. The city was loud around her. Cars honked. People rushed past. Somewhere, a street musician played guitar. Maya pulled her coat tighter and smiled. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. But because she had made it through. She had stood up. She had told the truth. And she was still here. That was enough. More than enough. She turned the corner and disappeared into the crowd, just another person with somewhere to go. But inside, she carried something no one could take away. She carried her own respect. And that, she had learned, was the only thing that really mattered. Some nights, Maya still walks past the Grandstone Hotel and remembers the girl she used to be. She doesn't miss her. The truth cost her everything, but it also gave her something no money could buy. She sleeps easy now. And when she looks in the mirror, she sees someone worth knowing. If you want to read more stories like this, stay tuned to the channel. Would you have spoken the truth, even if it cost you everything? If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for loving Reddit Storyteller.